All right, fact check this live stream. And what are the odds that Jacob forgot again?
I can promise you that Jacob will be late. He is always late to these things. We've been on each other's shows like 6 or 7 times, and he's never on. Usually it's because he's finishing dinner, which I chose to do like just on camera. So y'all can enjoy that while I eat my quesadilla.
Only if you chew as loudly as possible, so we can hear you eating your food. That's the only way that's allowed.
That grossed me out. I'm not doing that again.
Normally what I do is I just drink on the show. So what are y'all drinking tonight? I've got some marshmallow bourbon, and this is surprisingly delicious. Like I'm probably gonna get drunk tonight.
Marshmallow bourbon?
Yeah.
The hell do you guys drink in Indiana?
We've got a cool liquor store here in town, and they have a whole lot of random different stuff. So if I find something that looks cool, I'll grab it and I'll give it a try. The one that I had last week tasted like turpentine, but it had a slight apple flavor, a slight apple hint to the turpentine. It was like 34% alcohol, so it was one of those like get you fucked up kind of things.
All right.
It was enjoyable. But this is only 30% alcohol, and it has a really good flavor. So I might return to this one again sometime in the future.
I'll try it out. Where's it distilled?
Let's see.
I figure for both Midwesterners, there's a chance I can find it here.
It's bottled in Indianapolis, so
there is that's probably local. Maybe, I don't know. I've got a Minnesota gin with like Target brand LaCroix seltzer working. It's pretty good. I like the Target brand stuff because it's cheap and I don't have to walk around with like a LaCroix can, which is awful.
I've got a powder day IPA from Sierra Nevada. So I'm not drinking the hard shit tonight. You don't want me drinking the hard shit when I'm podcasting because I will just go way off the rails if I do. What's that?
Oh, I was saying an IPA is basically just piss water, so you should be good.
Whatever. It's beer with flavor. What beer? Do you drink beer?
I primarily drink like dark beers.
Yeah. Well, this has a lot of flavor in it, so it's not piss water. So calm down. I used to drink whiskey when I co-hosted for my brother, and man, it was always a good time because he was always. I had no train of thought whatsoever, and I wasn't running the show at the time. So I guess I should have brought whiskey because I'm not running the show. So I found out real quick when I started my own show, I can't drink whiskey and run my own show because I cannot focus for shit.
So the worst one was the second one of these Tuesday night live streams we did. And me and Magoo got just absolutely plastered. And the initial stream went 3 hours. And then we ended that and went for another 3 hours, 2 of which we actually recorded. And it was a total shit show. I mean, it was a lot of fun, but man, by the end of it, you could tell that we had been drinking for literally 6 hours straight.
Wow. I tried to cover one of the presidential debates with my brother. He was actually here at my house, and he brought some of that substance that's legal in Illinois, but not legal here. And we tried really hard to do a coverage of this. And man, I don't even fucking remember the debate at all. It was just like, I remember, like, you see how this Illinois grade marijuana that he brought, it was strong as fuck. Like, you see how people laugh on on movies and stuff, and like uncontrollable laughter. I could not fucking stop laughing to save my life, and I didn't even see any of the freaking debate to laugh at. It was just laughing at myself laughing, and it was ridiculous. And
I think if you're gonna cover the debate, you have to do it anyway. Though,
so. That was the whole thing. I was just like, I can't do this sober, and I don't even think alcohol is gonna do it. And he's like, hey, I brought this stuff, and it's like, cool, let's do it. And that didn't go anywhere. That there's There's a recording out there somewhere of that, but it never got released as an actual episode.
Those are probably
Patreon
the best
material.
kind of episodes. The ones that never actually make it to air.
Mm-hmm.
Jacob just texted me. He said that he just got his kids to sleep because apparently he's the wife.
Well, I was fighting dogs like literally 45 seconds before we started, so I can't say too much. If my kids were here, they would probably be just as bad. Granted, mine are 13 and 12, and then my stepdaughter is 11. She actually is the good one and cooperates. Jacob's are quite a bit smaller, I believe. So, yeah, he's still in that. They require a little more effort around bedtime.
Mine are 14 and 11, I think. Yeah, going to be 12. And so, yeah, the 11-year-old, the same thing. The 11-year-old's the one that keeps the 14-year-old in check and tells her to shut the hell up when I'm podcasting and stuff. But it's nice having them that age where you can do stuff like this and not necessarily worry about them dying. But you just never know, though.
Have you attempted to bring them on a show before? That's the real question.
No, I would never do that.
So I let my stepdaughter do the morning show with us when she was on fall break, or not fall break, spring break, a couple weeks ago, and she sat in on the Friday episode, and she got really mad because I wouldn't let her talk enough. I was like, there are 4 other people on the show. Like, you have to let everybody talk. It can't just be you talking 100% of the time. Like, you gotta chill. You gotta chill out a little bit. She thought she should just be the center of attention the whole time and run her mouth nonstop, which is par for her life.
It's like, it's my fucking show. Shut up.
That was her opinion. I've also brought my son on for this, and we've done like comic book reviews or movie reviews, stuff like that. And that's been a lot of fun. Like he is the complete opposite. He won't talk enough, whereas she talks way too much.
Yeah, I don't even know what my kids would say on a show. They don't have anything intelligent to say, so I don't know what they would talk about. Fortnite? I don't know.
I don't have kids. I have 2 goddaughters.
James has been completely left out of this part of the conversation.
That's all right, man.
But
I have a dog. I've got 2 goddaughters. None of them would do well on a podcast, mainly because the goddaughters are little and the dog doesn't speak English.
But it might be more coherent than a drunk conversation with the 3 of us, though.
It's true. I was actually just at my newest goddaughter. So she's like 4 months old or 5 months old, something like that. I was just at her baptism this weekend, yesterday. Or no, I guess Sunday. Is it Tuesday? Holy shit, it's already Tuesday. I was at her baptism on Sunday, and they're at this Lutheran church. And I don't know if y'all know much about the Lutherans, but there's 2 different like brands of Lutheranism in America. One of them's the Missouri Synod, which is like super right wing and conservative and like really, it's a quesadilla. I guess that counts as a sandwich. It is a sandwich, actually, just like a hot dog. So there's the Missouri Synod, which is like conservative and like really in keeping with the teachings of Martin Luther. And then there's the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America, the ELCA. And holy shit, this church, they like have their pronouns in the pamphlets and like. The Our Father, the Lord's Prayer, it starts out, our Creator, our Mother, our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. It was just the most surreal thing I had ever seen in my life. All this like gender inclusive language and stuff like that. Do
you think God cares about his pronouns? His, her pronouns, it's whatever. You think it's like God, quote or parentheses, him, her, /it, /they, them. I don't think God gives a shit about his, her pronouns. I don't know.
If God cares about his pronouns, he doesn't care about his pronouns as much as Pastor Jen at the Evangelical Church of Minneapolis cares about her pronouns.
I think I would agree with that.
I think that's taking it a bit far when you have to rewrite it to that extent. I think that's pushing it just a bit. It's like if you're really focused on The pronouns in the prayer, I think you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, that's we could see the intent of this episode was not to cover religion, even though we've got James and we'll have Jacobs shortly. But
you can't have me on a podcast without talking about it. Apparently, it's weird. I'm not even religious. Like I'm kind of a lapsed Catholic, but I love talking about this stuff. Hey, Carlos.
So I got to do a brief segment on. It's a much more left-leaning podcast, and I'll let's see, Dig on America. I think is the Dig on America is the name of the show, and I got to do a brief podcast talking about like the woke church a couple weeks ago, and that was really interesting. Like as it turned out, me and the guy that I was talking to on that show had a lot more aligning opinions on the church and kind of where it is in the bastardization of Christianity that has occurred in modern culture and stuff like that. So it was a lot of fun. And like I said, like we ended up agreeing on stuff a lot more than what I was anticipating. I thought it would be a little more argumentative, and instead we were kind of both circling around the same ideas with maybe different ways of getting there, and finding ourselves agreeing with each other on a lot of topics, at least as far as the American church goes. So that was really interesting. But tonight's topic is not actually focused on religion and the church. We're going to talk about the fact that we are all just completely exhausted and how we can be better at getting rest. So first of all, let's kind of go around the room, and what's everybody's sleep schedule like? Or do you even have something that would resemble a relatively normal sleep schedule?
Well, I play Wordle at night. It's dark outside, so I know that I'm at least up till midnight almost every night, and then I wake up at about 6:30 or 7. So I probably don't get it like literally enough sleep. Although I do tend to doze off at my desk while I'm working during the day, so I guess I catch up a little bit then.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, that article that Justin assigned us to read, it did talk about taking daily naps, so you might as well do it during work hours so you're getting paid to do it rather than sleeping at night when you're not getting paid. That's not efficient. If you're not getting paid, why would you sleep?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like I wouldn't work for free. Why would I sleep for free?
And so the lesson of this is for anybody who, volunteers to come on the show, I do assign you homework.
Yeah, what the hell's that all about? First of all, I had you on. I had you on. I'm like, hey, just come on my show. I don't care what we talk about. Let's just talk. And you're like, hey, come on my show. Here's this long assignment you have to do and do a book report on it.
I will tell you that I don't understand a word at salon.com ever. So the article was a little bit over my head. It just seemed a little too woo-woo, maybe, or I don't really know. But I do appreciate a nap when I can take one, but it's really hard for me to take them because I'm also kind of a productivity junkie. And if the sun's out, like I feel like I'm like, I don't know, compromising my values if I relax. Even though like I'm super unproductive. I'm sitting here on Discord all day, like just chatting with people. It's insane. But at least I'm awake, right?
Yeah, there you go. You're the guy that commented that you work on like 12 or 14 different podcasts or something like that.
That's Justin.
No, Justin, you do that. Oh, well, you're insane though.
We all do that though.
And you have like goats and shit.
Goats, chickens, working on it. We'll have a nice sized garden if it'll ever stop raining so we can plant the thing. Yeah, do a whole bunch of podcasts. I work night shift. So like I don't have a normal sleep schedule. Like on the it's 12-hour nights on a block schedule. So I work 4 and then I'm off 4. So for the 4 days that I work, I get home at about 7:15 every morning. And on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, then I sit down and do a morning show. And then I usually try to get to bed about 10 o'clock in the morning. I'll sleep until about 12:30 or 1.
What the
fuck? And then I get up and I work on podcast stuff and make clips and put together episodes and all of that stuff. And then I just set everything to upload and then I leave and go to work. And then I work a 12-hour night and come back home and do it all over again. And then on my off days, I try to have like a normal schedule. So I'll go to bed at like 10 o'clock, but then I'll get up at like 11:30 or 12, and I'll come back in here and I'll work on stuff or mess with stuff. And then I'll go back to bed at like 1 or 1:30. And then around 3, I'll come back in here and work on some more stuff. And then at about 6 o'clock, I'll like actually wake up for the day and make coffee and take a shower and cook breakfast. So
I feel like that article was all geared towards you.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Well, so the interesting thing that I kind of found with the article, because it talks about not just sleeping, but like resting and napping and utilizing that downstate. So something that I've found incredibly helpful for me, because I do typically sleep about 3 hours a day, is I try to take advantage of that, like that downstate time where you just kind of, I don't know, become a vegetable for a little while. Like I'll do it at work. If I'm at work at night and I feel like I'm starting to really drag, I'll go hide upstairs in my boss's office with the lights off. And I just sit. Like I just sit in a chair and I just kind of turn my brain off for about 15, 20 minutes. And then I get up and I'm ready to go. Like I'm re-energized and I can make it through the rest of the night after that. But it's like being able to utilize that just time to just like turn off and not be trying to be productive. It's hugely beneficial. So like that's why I wanted to have y'all on, because I know like James, you've got a bunch going on. Craig, you've got your show and a whole bunch of other stuff that you're doing. Jacob, whenever he shows up, he's got 75 kids and he's trying to rival Josh Smith. Plus he does his show and all kinds of other stuff. So like I wanted to talk to y'all about kind of how you manage your rest, and also how, after reading the article, did it kind of make you think of different ways that you could go about managing that downtime, or that down state?
Well, I didn't like my sleep schedule compared to you guys is, mine's probably pretty similar to James's. Like I'll probably shut off about midnight and get up around 6:30, get the kids out the door for school and shit. So 6.5 hours is normal for me. I could probably operate anything 4 or more pretty comfortably. I mean, I might be cranky if I only get 4, but I can operate anything under 4, man. I don't know how the hell you would do it. I worked third shift. I worked overnights when we were first married, and it didn't bother me until the weekends are what always screwed with me, because you get home, you don't want to go to bed because you want to live a normal life through the weekend. So then you're just dragging that whole freaking day. And now my wife works third shift, so she has to experience that. And so for me, I can't fall asleep without the TV on now, because she's worked third shift for 2-3 years now. So it's just been falling asleep to the television. So even on the weekends when she's home, she's like, I'm going to bed. She'll go to bed at like 9:30 or 10 because she's like freaking drained from working third shift. And she'll be like, you going to bed? I'm like, there's no way in hell I could go to bed right now. It's like prime, either doing podcast editing or writing or turning on the TV or something like that. But as far as the rest thing, or like what you were talking about, shutting off your brain, I know there's days I have one specific day, which is Wednesday, because Sunday I do our weekend podcast. Monday we do our live stream. Tuesday, which is tonight, after this, usually Tuesday is when everybody's like, hey, come on my show. And the time that you typically edit your podcast, hey, let's do this. And then you can push your editing till the wee hours of the morning, which is fine. I'm fine with that. So then I'll be editing till probably midnight, 1 o'clock, doing whatever it is, getting ready to release the episode tomorrow. So then usually Wednesdays, I don't do a goddamn thing. Wednesday nights I get home, my kids are like, hey, you want to do? No, I don't want to do anything. It's kind of like my podcast Sabbath for me, because usually every other day of the week I'm doing something. And then so Wednesday night, since I've gone 2 days podcasting, a full day of, or like an evening of editing and shit. So then by Wednesday, after releasing, doing all the social media posts and stuff to release the episode during the day Wednesday, by Wednesday night, I'm just like, nope, I'm not focusing on anything. I'm not reading anything. I'm not going to even, I don't even typically on Wednesdays watch a show that requires brain activity. I'll just turn on like a sitcom or something to just like literally shut my brain off too. So I feel like in the very least, if you can't have a normal schedule throughout, like daily throughout the week, you have to have like at least like a day somewhere in there or an evening in there where you're just like, not going to do a damn thing. I might hang out with the kids, but if it requires effort, I'm not going to do it because you got to have some time to recharge a little bit there and just kind of, especially doing podcasts where you're constantly flooding your brain with the bullshit that's going on in the world. I mean, that already enough is just mentally draining just reading that shit. And so most of the time I'm just like, I'm not even going to read anything tonight because I don't want my brain to go there because then it just takes off in like 50 different directions. I'm just like, nope, Wednesday night's my night. I'm not doing anything.
Yeah. I think, I don't know. So I tried to get into this like meditation habit. Although I was doing it in the morning right after I woke up, which I feel like I probably should have been doing it in the middle of the day instead. Or maybe both. I don't know. But I kind of fell out of it. Like Justin, when we went down to Texas and I was going to Orlando and like I was just doing all this travel last summer and fall, and it completely got me out of my morning routine to where now my morning routine consists of me getting up, checking all my phone notifications, probably reading fiction before doing the dishes, before going to work, and then I just sit at my computer all fucking day, and except for like when I bring the dog out or get up and if I stretch my legs or take a dump or something like that, then I'll get up. But otherwise, it's like I'm just sitting here and it's wreaking havoc on my body. Like I'm always sore. My muscles are so sore, like so stiff that I can't even pop my neck anymore because it doesn't bend that far. My lack of sleep has made me just super fat. Like I've always been kind of fat, but like I'm like obese now. And I'm like so heavy now that I broke the box spring on my bed. And so like now I don't get a good night's sleep because it's uncomfortable. And I did a search for box springs on Amazon. And so now I'm getting all these ads for fat people on Instagram and like every other social network, just reminding me how fat I am. Oh, do you want to lose weight? Take this pill. Do this intermittent fast. Like just all this garbage simply because I searched for a like reinforced box spring on Amazon.
Wow.
So then I'm constantly shamed about my fatness. So yeah, I mean, life's good, but sleep's not great. Although I do go to the gym 4 times a week, so we're working on it.
So that is something that it kind of talks about in the article. Is the physical and also kind of the mental importance of sleep. Like it is a restorative thing, and just the fact that we don't, like, none of us get enough sleep. So it talks a lot about rest and taking advantage of that and like trying to tune yourself out of always being like in that up state, because that's what we do. That's why we stay up on our phone for as long as we do. That's why we're always reading something that's like really engaging or watching something that we're trying to get content off of. Like we're always pushing ourselves into that up state. And like Craig was talking about, like he takes Wednesday. For me, it's Saturday. Whether I'm on my block working or if I'm off, like I don't do anything podcast related on Saturday. I just, if I'm going to be behind on putting episodes or clips or something out, then I'm going to be behind. But on Saturday, I'm not touching this computer, period. So like having a time where we can build in rest to our schedule is incredibly important. So I don't know, people act like I'm like absolutely insane. I have a really long commute to work on top of, I mean, obviously I sleep 3 hours a day. So I might be in like just insane anyway. But people act like I'm really insane because I also have a long commute. I drive about just a little over an hour one way to work.
Holy cow.
And everybody just thinks that's the craziest thing ever. On top of working a 12-hour shift, I also have about an hour and 10-minute commute. That is such a blessing for me. Like,
I understand that. I really do understand that.
On the way to work, I just put on like whatever music I'm feeling for the day. I put music on. And if it's nice out, I roll the windows down and I just drive to work. And like, I don't think about anything. I'm just in a restful state of I'm on my way. And then when I get off work in the morning, I do the same thing. I set my backpack with all of my work crap in the back seat. I take my steel toe boots off and set them in the floorboard and put comfortable shoes on. And I put music on and I drive home. And I don't think about anything that happened the night before. I completely just wipe it all out of my brain. And by the time I get home, I'm ready to be home. And there is, I think there's a lot of value in being able to utilize time like that. So what do y'all think in terms of like your personal schedules and stuff like that? Like, where do you see opportunities for stuff like that you could build that downstate time into your schedule and kind of utilize restfulness in what would be probably considered like non-traditional ways, like not napping, but utilizing the time that you have to get more out of it and actually achieve a level of rest?
Well, I understand what you're saying about enjoying or appreciating the commute home, because when I worked that job, third shift, it was like my job now, I would say isn't super high stress. There's not too many days that I leave work like overly pissed off or anything like that. But when we were first married, I worked at a production factory, and it was always about getting numbers, and things would go wrong and it didn't matter. The management still wanted you to hit your numbers no matter what. And I mean, 4 out of 5 days you leave work pissed off, but I lived 35 minutes away. And so it didn't matter how pissed off I left work. By the time I got home, it had faded. It just didn't fucking matter at that point. So I feel like if I lived like 5 minutes away, I probably would have came home and been an asshole to my wife. And being a newlywed, that's not recommended, coming home and being an asshole right when you get home, especially when you're working third shift. She wakes up in the morning and you're coming home and being an asshole. So I appreciated, I remember thinking at the time, because at times I thought, man, it'd be nicer to live closer, but every time I drive that and get home and that would just all be gone and work would just be gone by that point. It was just like, yeah, that was a nice drive to cool off a little bit and let that shit go before I got home, and then I could just leave it at the door before I walked in the door. So I do understand that. I mean, an hour drive sounds like it would suck, especially sleeping for 3 hours. I'd probably be sleeping on the way home, but half the time I remember driving home and I'd get into town and not remember half the drive because I was basically sleeping the whole way home. But as for right now, the last few weeks, my job has got to the point where the office manager, like, we have a small crew, and so some of the techs don't come back to the office. I usually come back to the office. The office manager leaves an hour early. The boss leaves probably 30 minutes early. So I could just walk out the door and go home and just say I left at 5, no problem. But normally I just sit down, maybe finish up some paperwork, just relax for a few minutes before I walk out the door, just enjoying that empty space, like nobody in the building. I can catch up on anything that I need to catch up on without the boss talking in my ear. And then at 5 o'clock rolls around, it's just like, all right, I'm in a comfortable spot. I can get up and walk home. And it's what, 20 minutes, but still that 20 minutes, I appreciate just that downtime for just a few minutes before I walk out the door. And again, it's just that leaving work at the door to go home and not have to really focus on work anymore.
So I don't have a commute, which like when I did, it was great. Like that was a very sort of meditative time of day for me, like both ways. I would listen to podcasts or music or whatever and just kind of chill. Hey, what's up, buddy?
Hey, not much. How you guys doing?
Good.
We're talking about sleep and rest and like rest without sleep.
Yeah, I do this a lot actually. But yeah, continue. I don't want to interrupt you.
I don't remember what I was saying. Oh yeah, the commute thing. So now my commute is like basically from the bedroom to my office.
Do you ever get
I-
lost?
Yeah, I do. I'm always lost. And now I'm found or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know, man. It really gets to where like I have no downtime at all. No, maybe not no downtime, but no downstate. Like I always have some sort of stimulation. There's, podcasts in my ears, or TV, or a book, or work, or more TV, or I'm cooking dinner and also listening to a podcast, and also like then my partner will come in and want to talk because we haven't talked all day because I've been in the office all day, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then I fall asleep and then wake up and do it over again. I don't even really have like a Sabbath day like you guys, which is probably bad for my body and soul.
Yeah.
Well, so where I was working before I got this new job back in January, I had no downtime. I was working pretty much 7 days a week, 60 hours a week. And I would come home and I was literally a zombie. Like my body would force me to I couldn't spend time with my wife or my kids. I just come home, I would maybe get something down my throat to eat. If I had podcasts, I tried to keep them, but towards the end there, I was kind of having to take a hiatus because I had barely even had time for that. And I wasn't even going to church because Sundays, that was my day off, but I was just in I didn't want to get out of bed and do anything because I was just so beat up. So now I have a better work balance, but beyond that, then I was I had all this free time and I was I don't know how to relax. So when I was reading this article that we're supposed to talk about, I was yeah, this is me. I didn't know what downtime looked like, and I started getting more sleep, but I still, I wasn't getting rest. You know what I mean? And so I found actually I kind of reconnected to music. And so I grew up playing music. I was in my school marching band. I was on the church worship team. I know that's not something you Catholics have, James. It's just a dumb Protestant thing.
I've actually been on a worship team before. I was the praise leader for an evangelical congregation.
Wow.
So
Just for fun.
But I used to have such a deep love for music, and then I don't know, just I don't know, over the course of my adulthood and stuff, I kind of lost that. And then I remember talking to my wife over the phone and just being I don't know what to do. I'm so stressed out during the day, and even on my lunch breaks and stuff, or if I have little 5-minute breaks here, I don't know how to just get the tension off and unclench. And she's well, what are you listening to throughout the day? And I was just a bunch of podcasts about how the world's coming to an end and and all this stuff. And she's well, maybe don't consume 8 hours of podcasts about libertarianism and all this bad stuff going on. You need to put good stuff into your brain. And I was just what? I don't know. And so I just, I don't know, I went back and started listening to old music from when I was a kid, old Christian music, old Christian rock music I liked. And then I started listening to hymns, which I've actually started to I've gotten really deep into listening to old church hymns and stuff, which they aren't really my favorite music, but there's something about them that they just kind of encourage this my mind to go into a bit more of a a state of rest, in a state of not having to do something. So yeah, I don't know, that's sort of what I've been going through lately, and sort of what I was thinking about when I read that article.
So we've all kind of talked about work to some extent or another, because and in our modern society, work is an incredibly important thing, or at least there is a huge societal emphasis that's put on work. and I actually did an episode that talked about like the future of work and like toxic workplaces. It was based off of a couple different books, or one of them's more of a collection of short stories, and the other one's like a mini novella. But they talk about like the future of work, and the way they kind of boil it down in both of these little novellas is like work is this constant thing, and I just don't see a future where that's where that is my existence, because I do I think I do a very good job of like when I leave work, I just shut it off. I don't carry it with me. It's the thing that I do for money. And as soon as I walk out the door and I set my backpack in the back seat of my truck, like I said, for making my drive home, like I set the backpack in my back seat of my truck, I take my shoes off, and that's it. Like I don't think about it again until I show back up and I walk in the door to see what kind of shit show the guy who's going out left for me at the end of his shift. It's like, but work does not cross my mind at any point during the day other than exclusively when I'm at work. And I don't think that's the case for a lot of people. And I think that this article also kind of touches on that, is that a lot of people live in this like constant upstate of like work is this all consuming monster. How do y'all kind of deal with it? Like, I don't have a good explanation for how I deal with it. Like, it's just my mental, it's just the way I'm programmed. Like when I leave, I stop caring. And it's because I have had careers previously where I was on 24/7, and I acknowledge that was not a healthy position for me to be in. And so I've divorced myself from that completely. So how do y'all deal with the work-life balance side of stuff?
I've been doing a lot better with that recently. Like it got to the point where I was checking my emails every half hour, 20 minutes, just compulsively. Like I wasn't doing anything with them. I just swiped down to refresh the mailbox and see if anything new had come in, and then close the mail app and go back to whatever it was I was doing, which is like a compulsive behavior and really unhealthy. Now I have turned off all notifications for email on my phone. I still get notifications for like our internal chat app that we use at work, but I don't get a whole lot of chats, so I kind of am okay with that, I guess. I did have a work dream last night, but it was the first one I'd had in a really long time, so that's good, I think. It tells me that I'm not dwelling on it. But a lot of it, for me anyway, is just mind over matter. I force myself not to dwell on the projects that I'm working on and stuff. Like I mentioned when you, oh hey, it's Jose. What up, dude? Yeah, I mentioned that like I work for a software company. I'm a techie at a software company. Like I'm not an engineer, but I do like customizations and things like that. So I'm working on a ton of projects, and it would be very easy for me to do it just from home. From like I said, my commute is a few steps, so I have to force myself not to work weekends, and most of the time not work late at night and things like that.
I think for me, my job's a typical 8 to 5, and I mean I work service. I install like security alarms and stuff like that. I mean, I have an on-call phone, and I'm on call every other week, but it barely ever rings, and I don't put that much thought into it. If it does ring, I'll have to maybe step out and run to a job or jump on a computer and do some programming or something. But as soon as that call is done, I'm over it. I don't care enough. I like my job. I don't care enough about it to make it consume my life. I don't think I could work from home. I don't think I could be like you, James, and work from home, because I think it'd be a lot harder to separate work from home, that distinguish between the two. Because I know people that, especially during the pandemic, my brother-in-law is an engineer, and he ended up working from home a lot. And he was like, well, it's great because I can set my hours. Like I can get up and do it, and then go do something with the kids, and then come back and do it, and then late at night do it. I don't want that. I want to know that at 8 o'clock I'm on and at 5 o'clock I'm off. I don't want to be at home where at any point I'm thinking in my head, well, I could go and knock something out right now because the computer, my office is right across the room right there.
Yeah, that the allure of setting your own hours and working remote, not having to, put on pants for work and stuff was really, really attractive 2 years ago. Like I got this job right before COVID. So I've been remote since before being remote was cool. And I thought that it would be just the best thing in the world. And it's really not. Like I'm tempted to like rent out a WeWork space. If I could afford it, I would. But our office is in Atlanta, so I can't just drive to work if I wanted to.
Is that how you feel though, that you have a hard time like stepping away, or it's always right there?
Yep.
Where, hey, I got this project, I could walk across the room and go work on that right now instead of, hey, it's 5 o'clock, it's off time.
Like I said, I've been pretty good about separating my work from like the rest of my day recently. But I mean, if it's crunch time and I've got a project due in the next day or two, and I need to stay up until 11 or even later, getting it done, it's much easier to do that in a remote job than it is if you're in an office. And I did it when I was in an office job too. I mean, you got to do what you got to do, but there's no like janitor coming around saying, "Hey, you're still here at home." You know what I mean? Like there's just your partner or spouse or whatever wondering why the hell you haven't come to bed yet, and it's much easier to disappoint them than it is to embarrass yourself in front of the office janitor.
That's fair.
I know when I jumped in, you were talking about commute, James, and I gotta say that was one thing that changed for me with this new job that's been mostly a positive. I mean, sometimes I bitch about it because I don't particularly like driving that much, and I had to like adjust my sleep schedule, and I hate fighting traffic and whatnot to get to work on time. But on the other hand, like I used to be the type that like I'd bring my work home with me in terms of like I'd still be thinking about work, and I used to live 5 minutes away from work, and so like there was no buffer, and I find having that buffer to be really useful for kind of like transitioning to more of a downtime mode, and I'm also, I mean, what's funny is this article is describing what I've actually been, with my the counselor that I've been with for the past 2 years, been trying to learn how to not view being at home with my family as just more work, which I know that sounds terrible, but like when you have 3 kids, it's kind of like, they're not exactly, automatons that like don't need anything. Like it's constantly, Daddy, look at this, Daddy, help me with this. Or someone, they hurt each other, they're crying, need help going to the bathroom. It's one thing after another. But I think that there's something to trying to like reorient your mind to view certain things as not work, and rather trying to, even if they are work, trying to find the enjoyment in it, and to put your brain into more of a relaxed mindset, which I don't know. It's something that I certainly struggle with. It's a day-to-day struggle, but I don't know. I have good days and bad days. I know on Sunday, it's like I had to work on Saturday because I have to work on some Saturdays, and then Sunday I just like the whole day got to spend with my kids, and it was one of my better days where like there was still chaos around me, but I was just able to, anytime the kids had one of their mini, panic attacks over, the little things that kids get upset about, I was able to just like not let their not let their chaotic energy bring me down, but rather to sort of be a calming presence, which as a father I grew up with a father who was very like not involved, and when he got involved he just yelled at people, and I don't want to be, and I love my dad, I'm not trying to throw him under the bus or anything. We have a good relationship now, but we didn't when I was growing up. So that's something I've been working on too a lot lately is just trying to, this sounds so like cringe, like safe space thing, but like identifying my triggers, right? Like I think we all have them. Like there's things that can trigger us into a sort of like state of anxiety or anger or stress, and it's like identifying what those triggers are, and then like when they happen, like learning, like coming up with techniques to deal with them, which honestly, so like things in the article that reminded me of like things that I've talked to my counselor about was like the how to do deep breathing. Like it's kind of a cliche to like take a deep breath, but there's actually sort of a science behind it. Another thing I do is chug water, which I mean water is healthy for you anyway. But if you kind of like sit there and just like drink water for 30 seconds, it sort of like forces your heart rate to go down a little bit, and it's sort of like you just have to like interrupt your brain patterns from kind of getting too carried away with like getting focused on the thing that you would usually get upset about. So I don't know, that's some of the things that come to mind.
I think it helps. I mean, there's not much, you don't have a ton of control of this, but it helps when you come home from a rough day and the kids aren't already like in a state of instant stress or like coming at you with a billion problems or nagging at you about something. And like one time I remember I had this horrible day at work. I don't even remember why. That's how unimportant it was, but I just had a shitty day at work. And I came home and my daughter at the time, she was just like, "How was your day?" And instantly I was just like, "It was good." And the whole rest of the day was fine after that. And like, it was just my natural response was, it was, even though it was horrible, I didn't even like put any thought, just the fact that she greeted me at the door and said, hey dad, how was your day? I was just like, oh, it's good. And the whole rest of the evening went well. But then there's days when you come home and it's just like the kids are in a fight or something, or in a fight with their mom and stuff. And it's just like piles onto whatever stress you already might've had on you. And it's just like, that high state that they were talking about just gets a little bit higher or just keeps pushing. And it's like, you got to let me come down from this a little bit before I can deal with this. So like I said, it's not like you see those 1950s articles that are talking about, I don't know did you ever read that article from like 1950s, like how to prepare for when your husband comes home?
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I have that posted on the fridge for my wife to look at.
I mean, I feel like every wife should look at that.
You're muted, James. You were unmuted and then you muted yourself.
Did I? Oh, really? I made a joke about you being the wife.
Oh yeah.
But that one's
not
like
wrong.
Like make sure that the kids are bathed and quiet, and don't ask your husband any questions when he walks in the door and stuff. And obviously we don't have that kind of freaking chauvinistic mentality. We can't have that now, that we have to expect our wives to have their hair all done nicely and have the kids bathed and shit. So like I said, you don't have control over what you're walking in the door to. So I mean, that's why it's nice to have that, like you said, the hour commute home where you can come down before you walk into what you have no idea what you're, even if you like, maybe your wife calls you on the way home and warns you ahead of time. That's always nice, but then that kind of interrupts your downtime on the way home, because then you're just thinking about what you're walking into. But at least you have that time to kind of like fade out a little bit before you walk into it, instead of just like going from instant stress of work to instant stress at home. So I don't have an answer to like how to fix that, unless it's like, hey, just go drive around the block 5 or 6 times before you walk in the door. I mean, a lot of times I'll just walk in. If I'm like stressed out, I'll just go like straight out to my back porch and smoke my pipe or something, just so I can like calm myself down before I get into the mix of it, because otherwise.
Yeah.
I'm also in that lucky position that because I do work night shift, by the time I get home, my wife has left for work. The kids have all gone to school. So I'm walking into, other than the dogs, an empty house. So like I do know what I'm going to come home to every day. It's going to be nothing at all. It'll be an empty house and I get to just do whatever I want. But like I'm a rare case in that, like most people. And like that went into So I had the opportunity to go back to day shift. And a lot of this stuff like really went into that decision. Is like, okay, like there's a lot of stuff that I do during the day in terms of like the podcasting stuff and the morning show and all of that. And there's a lot of like flexibility with working night shift that I can do that stuff during the day, especially since I really don't sleep. So, I took all that into consideration when I considered whether or not I was going to stay on night shift or go back to working day shift. And also night shift pays better, so it was kind of a no-brainer. But yeah, go ahead, Jacob. You were about to say something.
Well, I was going to say, one of the things that I know that's helped me, and really it's maybe especially at home, but I think you can use it for work stuff too. But it's like, I'm always trying to reframe things into a more positive narrative. Because it's easy to kind of come home and be like, oh, great, like the kids are crying and, or my wife needs me to do this, or, and to put that negative connotation on it. And sometimes what's helpful is to just kind of like make a conscious, intentional effort to like reframe it in a positive light. So like if I come home and like immediately my wife needs help, let's say it's like, oh, I haven't started dinner yet, and the kids are crying and they're fighting and I need your help to make dinner. So I can like be upset about the stressful situation, or I can be like, oh, what's really cool? Like I'm going to try to, like I'm excited to make dinner. Like try to find enjoyment, because I like cooking. Actually, I don't have to view it as a stressful thing. I can find the positive in it. Or if
what was that article hanging on your fridge, Jacob?
Yeah,
his wife hanging on the fridge for him,
right? The other thing here is just bread, water. So you're exactly. It's the best of both worlds. Or if my kids need something, it's like instead of like, getting stressed out about it and being like, oh, I have to do this, to instead be like, wow, like my kid wants to come to me and get my help for something. And like, always like to kind of put yourself in the shoes of for those of us who have kids, like imagine you when you were that age, you know what I mean? And it's not always easy for kids to come and ask their parents for help with something. And when they do, it's like they're really like, even if they're not doing it in the most graceful fashion, they're that's just, they're using just the language that they know how to use. So I always try to look at things and try to reframe them as like, this is an opportunity for me to do something that is good, or that it's good for my family. It's good for my kids. And then the other thing is, and I talked about this a little bit when I had Dave Smith on last week, to like really cherish those little moments, but then also to try to reciprocate them. Like, so one of my favorite things is when I come home from work and like my kids are waiting for me at the door, and then like come running for me, like daddy, and like especially like my littlest one right now, who's like 2, like he literally like sees me, he gives me this look, he's like, and like we both know like we're gonna start running towards each other, and then like he just like flails himself at me, and I pick him up, and he just like squeezes onto me really tight, and like those are like the picture perfect moments of like being a dad. That's not every day, but what I try to do,
enjoy that while it lasts, because at 14 it's just like, oh, you're home.
Well, yeah, most of what I get is, don't you have to go to work today? Why are you still here?
Well, that's why you get dogs, though, because my dog, that's one thing I was going to say is the best thing you can do is get dogs, because they're always freaking happy to see you when you get home. So it's just like, oh, somebody at least is happy to see me.
But you know what you can do, and I think this works with kids of all age. Now, granted, I don't have teenagers yet, but I have a 7-year-old, and this works with him still even. Is I try to do what I just described, but to them, like in reverse. So I come home, and even if nobody's like meeting me at the door and they're like, super excited, I come home and I find each individual one of them, and I'm like, Daniel or Ava, like I run towards them and try to give them a big hug, and act like the best part of my day was I got to come home and see them. And
Jacob's over here making us look all like asshole dads.
No, I mean, it's just, there's, listen, this is stuff that I'm just recently going through. I mean, I had years where I was like, I know I wasn't being a good dad. I was not there enough for my wife and for my kids. And like this past year has been a journey of me trying to, take better care of myself so I can take better care of my family. And it's all, and so like, again, like reading this article was all just like, almost like reminded me of all the conversations I've had with my personal counselor over the past 2 years. And it's just about being honest with ourselves. Like we're only human. Like we don't really have control over like the initial reactions we have to things. All we can do is like try to increase our self-awareness to be like, to just look ourselves brutally in the mirror and see like, this is how I am. And instead of like, I don't know, being depressed and about it, like, I don't know, just figure out what you have to do to put yourself in the position to succeed, and also to put yourself in positions to not have burnout and to not, I mean, and also, I guess like this will be like the last thing on my little rant here is like, we have to learn to forgive ourselves too, because like we're gonna have days and weeks where we completely fuck up, where we fail epically at trying to do the things that we want to do. And it's so easy. I know like I fall into this trap where like if I have like a bad day, it's easy for me to have a bad day turn into a bad week, because it's like you get depressed and then you're just like it's like compounding, and then you can like for some reason it's not really logical, but like in your head it's just kind of like, oh well, I already screwed up, like, and you get caught in this mindset of like self-deprecating and like the sort of like, I'm not worth it. It's sort of like my internal monologue. It's just like I messed up again. I fell off the wagon again at what I was trying to do. I'm never going to get it right. And it's just about like, and my wife does this too. And I'm always trying to be an advocate for her, to be like, listen, like we're all just inheritors of like all of the baggage, all of the bad things that we were taught growing up in the culture, or by sometimes churches, or by schools, or adult role models we had that weren't the best. It's like, I mean, and it's not our fault, and and if we hold ourselves to a standard of perfection, then we're going to be continually depressed and angry at ourselves. Whereas if we just, you fall off that wagon, you mess up, but it's like, okay, tomorrow's another day.
So to kind of piggyback off the bad day turns into a bad week, like, and I talked about my divorce and spiritual journey from that point forward with Tommy on year 0, several months ago. Like I feel that, like I had that bad day that turned into a bad week, that turned into a bad month, that turned into a bad year, that like 7 years later I was like, is it ever gonna fucking end? And then the last 7 years of my life have been kind of trying to course correct from feeling like that, because a lot of that was my own fault. And like I think like from what all of us have kind of talked about, and even if you look at the article a little more deeply, like a lot of it is your personal mentality. Like we have a lot more control over this than what we probably, maybe not than what we, the four of us, are willing to admit, but like we have a lot more control over this than what the average person is willing to admit, because a lot of it is like your mentality and the way you approach work and life and the balance of that, and your kids, and like Jacob's been talking about, like coming home and supper's not done. I like to cook. Cool. That's like, what are we having tonight? Taking an hour commute that everybody that I work with thinks is like the craziest, most nightmarish thing they could imagine. That's my me time. That's how I get ready for work, and that's how I wind down from work. Like taking those situations that, it's the old cliche of turning the lemons into lemonade. It's we take what's given to us, and depending on our attitude and our mindset and the way we approach it, we can gain that down state and get restfulness from the things that would otherwise seem chaotic, just by changing the way we approach it. this has been a really good conversation. I know we're coming up on time, and Jacob's got to go jump on with Jose.
Yeah,
So,
I gotta
y'all
go.
got any
I have
closing
to go have an
thoughts on here?
autistic debate with Jose about religion, I guess.
I wanted to ask something quick, and this can be short, but I was kind of piggybacking off what Jacob was talking about of like negative mind space and whatever. Do any of you find, and this ties back to the article too, that when you're in that down state is when you tend to fall more into like the negative mind space. So that's why you keep yourself busy and active and like feeling more productive, feeling better about yourself. Because I know, like, I think James, you were saying that when you get in the relaxed state, you feel like you're not being productive. There's so much stuff you could be doing already. And then you start to think about, I don't know, maybe thoughts just go wherever in a more negative direction because you're in that down state. Maybe it starts with, hey, I'm not being productive. I don't know. I feel like sometimes I keep myself busy, and that's when I stay positive because I'm so busy that I'm not focusing on whatever else my brain could freaking run off in whatever direction. And when I let myself into that down space, that's when I catch myself like sliding into, I wouldn't say depressive state, but more just like a negative space. And so maybe that's why a lot of, I don't know if it's a guy thing or a people thing, but maybe that's why we find ourselves like constantly like pushing ourselves further into that like high state to keep that positive, like productive mentality, or at least to distract yourself from whatever negativity you might allow yourself to get into in that down state.
Yeah. So for me, a friend of mine told me once, he said there's two types of people in the world. There's the poor fucked up me type, and then there's the poor fucked up everybody else type. And I think I'm more of the poor fucked up everybody else type. I tend not to beat myself up even when I'm kind of deserving of it. So I think where my sort of negativity comes from is not the like, oh, I'm not being productive enough. It's more the, oh, I have so much shit to do, and I'm not doing it right now. And like, so it's more external for me. Kind of the same difference though, I think.
Yeah, I would say I guess what came to mind for me was that like I think it's and this is also my reaction to the article too, was that like I feel like it's good to be, because here's the thing, like I think the problem is not with wanting to be productive. I think the problem is like with if you look at it in sort of like a hierarchical sense, it's like there are times where your top priority needs to be being productive, but then those down states need to be where being productive isn't the top priority. But that doesn't mean you can't be productive during down states, I think. And because I mean, let's face, like a lot of us, we don't exactly just have hours in our day and weeks to just like, you know, like sit down and do nothing. And I don't even think, I think if anything, if doing nothing stresses you out, that might not be a good thing to do during your down state. So maybe it's just, I think it's more about, all right, well, I'm going to do things, but I'm going to do things in a different mindset. I'm going to do them in the mindset of like, I'm relaxing. I'm not putting pressure on myself. I'm not, you know, again, it's about, like the article put it, like, it's like there's running your brain at like a high RPM than it's running it at a low RPM. Like, you know, you can still be productive and run in a low RPM. And it's just about finding the tasks you can do in that, you know, in that mindset. And then just trying to find more, like my last thing before I hop off here would be just like, just again, to echo, like the more you find joy in even the things that you hate, the more you will, because I think a lot of times what I find, at least for myself, is that what ends up wearing me out is when I have to do things and it's the things I don't want to do. And so the more we can approach the things we have to do with that mindset of actually finding joy and a desire to do them, the less those things, because you only have like one of the things my counselor taught me, like the language he used is like you start out a day with a certain number of spoons, and he's like every activity costs a different number of spoons, and the problem is like if you if you're not careful, you'll get to like halfway through the day and you'll have spent all your spoons, basically. And he's like, you gotta learn to be a bit more, I don't know, like a good steward of your time and energy, and to know your limits. And and yeah, I guess that's that's my time. I will hop off now, and it was great chatting with you guys.
Yeah, it was good,
thanks
Jack.
for coming on, Jacob.
Yep, sorry I was late. I had some family stuff going on, but y'all have a good rest of your night.
See you, Jacob.
Yeah.
Have a good one, man. So yeah, to kind of go with what Craig was talking about, I guess as we've already established, I'm a little bit of a psychopath. I don't really take issue with that. Like, if I'm not being productive, I'm just not being productive. And I guess maybe I build that time in more deliberately to my daily and weekly schedule. Like I've started taking time out of my day to do dumb shit, like deliberately not productive stuff. Like, I'll take 30 minutes to watch a TV show that I haven't seen before that looks like it might be interesting. And at the end of the 30 minutes, I might have hated it and it might have been horrible, but like, it's not time that I'm in upstate, like thinking about working on stuff. It's time that I'm just like in a vegetative, like, I'm going to take this time to just do this. Or like I'll play a video game. I'll do something like Destiny 2 is a game that I really like. So like I'll do a couple fire team missions on Destiny 2. It takes about 30 minutes. I'm not thinking about it. I'm just running around playing a game. Like, it gives me time that I can deliberately not be productive and enjoy that time, and like I can just turn my brain off and not be connected to everything. So and I don't take issue with that. I deliberately have that as a part of my day, and I think there's a huge value to that. And like we keep, I guess the article was the homework for everybody, so we should keep going back to it. But like, the article talks about that, like having that time where you have to be respectful of your downstate time, because it is physically and mentally detrimental. Like, that's the way the body's natural circadian rhythms go, is that you should be up and down, and you have to allow that downtime to occur and to be there. Otherwise, you push yourself to like, it even talks about like negative detriments as far as like dementia and stuff like that come on like earlier in life than what they should, because we are running at such an elevated upstate consistently in our day-to-day lives with the way modern society is.
Yeah, I think it made me think that article, when it's talking about like the cycles, like allowing yourself to regenerate or whatever, made me think of like working out or something. You can't just like sit there and like do curls 24 hours 24/7 and expect to get like arm muscles. Like your muscles have to have some time to, like, because you're breaking them down, and then the rest is what builds them up. Like they heal, and they heal a little bit stronger. And I'm not going to get into like a workout podcast here, but because I'm not the person to do that. But if you're not allowing that healing process, it's not going to build back up. It's just going to constantly be broken down, and you're just going to be in a worse spot than you were before you started doing 24/7 curls. And so, and it kind of talked about that. It's like, you don't allow those hormones to balance back out, or your brain chemicals to balance back out, then they're just constantly, like, everything's just chemicals in your head. And if they're constantly on high alert, or if your heart rate's constantly like pumping, and you don't allow that to like regenerate, whether it's through sleep or like you're saying with some downtime of not thinking about some of this stuff or not stressing yourself out, then yeah, I mean, it's just going to do damage physically, not just mentally, but physically to your body. You see people who work high stress jobs for their entire life, which is much shorter than somebody's life that doesn't put their brains through that and their bodies through that. I mean, these are people that are having heart attacks like 47 years old because they put themselves in this high stress, whether it's like Wall Street job or a freaking like management job or something. It's just like your bodies aren't meant to physically exert itself or mentally exert itself for just constantly like that.
Yeah. I guess just to wrap things up a little bit for myself, because Carlos just reminded me of it actually in the chat. I've been doing intermittent fasting this month, and that's been wonderful. Like, so Carlos said, like, less bandwidth spent on what I'm going to eat, which is true. Like, I'm not taking a lunch break at work, so my break more consists of going out to the yard with my dog rather than just letting him out and coming back inside and working until he starts barking. So that's cool. A little bit of downstate, I guess, although I'm typically listening to a podcast when I do that, so it's not really downstate. In any case, it not only has that like kind of freed up some time for doing things other than working during the day, but also my brain is functioning better.
Mm-hmm.
And even better than when I was doing like just like strict hardcore keto. I don't really know the physiology behind it, but it seems to be doing well, and I've lost some weight too, which is a good side effect, or maybe that is the effect and the mind stuff is a side effect. But anyway, I do recommend that for anybody that's
that's supposed to I've done it. I've been doing it for the last month too, and I did it before, and I've done keto. I've done other things too, and this is the one. Like I've heard nutritionists talk about it. I had a nutritionist on my show last month, which is what got me back into it, and it like balances out your hormones and your glucose levels or your insulin levels. It balances everything back out. So that, I mean, it has like mental effects, it has like physiological effects and stuff. It has like gut effects. It's just supposed to be overall better for just like bringing you back to like a level playing field in the mornings or whenever it is you decide to break that, and your body's more receptive to the nutrients that you're putting. I mean, the best thing you could do is when you're intermittent fasting, also eat nutritional foods on top of that. So when your body is open to the most open at the end of it to receiving those nutrients, that's when you're putting nutrients in your body. But yeah, I felt the same way, not only physical, like I wake up in the morning because I do it. I don't know what time you do it, but I do it. Like I eat dinner around 5:30 and then I won't eat until 10:30, 11:30 the next day. It's basically just skipping breakfast and not freaking midnight snacking, which is what I'm terrible at. But I wake up in the morning and I don't feel just that grogginess that I normally would feel, that just like, I don't know, from physical to mental and stuff. I just feel more aware, just more like ready to get up than I did. And there's some kind of, I don't know the science behind it either, but there's some kind of like chemical balance that occurs, and it's the same with what we're talking about, like rest and stuff. It's balancing back out those chemicals, because again, your brain's just all freaking chemicals, and if they're out of balance, then, and that's why people who have like mental disorders or like bipolar disorder or something like that, they're thinking all these crazy thoughts that aren't actually, they feel like such real moments, but it's really just chemicals going crazy in their head that's making them, that's like flaring like brain cells and stuff, and it's triggering actual thoughts, but it's not, if it's not real, it's just a chemical imbalance is all that is. And if you can find ways, whether it's through sleep patterns or eating patterns or exercise patterns, to somehow try to balance those chemicals, then not only does it have the physical effects of like weight loss or like not feeling like crap in the morning, but it also balances out your brain chemicals to where you realize, hey, this isn't as bad as I thought it was.
So to kind of close this out a little bit and sort of tie the whole thing up, it feels like the more we've talked about this as we've gone through it, especially with Jacob and him talking about like the time that he spent talking to his counselor and stuff like that, and just our own personal journeys through this and the different things we've gone through. It feels like a lot of this stuff kind of comes down to having some semblance of discipline in your life to just do what you need to do for your body. And we can kind of wrap it on this. I don't want it to be super long because we're already over an hour and 15 minutes, and I want to let y'all get to your evenings. Does it feel like maybe some of the reason that this is such an important topic and maybe such a problem for especially the U.S., but maybe even the world as a whole, is that for whatever reason in modern society, people lack any semblance of discipline?
I think so. I think we're trained to think that, the harder you work, the more successful you'll be. The more successful you are, the better life's going to be. And we get that kind of ingrained in us. And the discipline part doesn't, like, we think of discipline, we think of like hard work. Hard work is discipline. Like, if you're disciplined, you can go get the job done no matter what it takes, no matter how little sleep. And what you're referring to is like personal discipline, like the opposite of that, like being able to cut yourself off and say, or go to the gym or take a nap or, like not eat a freaking gallon of cookie dough. I mean, there's multiple kinds of discipline, but yet the only thing we're really taught, especially, I don't want to make this a sexist debate or anything like that, but I really think that males are taught, or at least back when like us growing up, males were taught that discipline is hard work. Like you bust your ass, you get shit done. And the harder you work, the more successful you'll be and you'll do better for your family. And I just feel like,
and you never quit, you never give up, you push forward no matter what. Like, it's anything shy of complete and total success is just an ultimate failure, and it's a black mark on your name.
And if you dare to admit that, hey, I need a freaking break, I need to step back from this, then you're some sort of failure, or you're a freaking pansy or whatever. I mean, I don't know that's probably not the case now with males growing up today. I guarantee it, but that definitely was how we were raised in our society.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not gonna expand too much on it, but I think that conflating work with virtue or work with discipline or work with really anything other than what it is, which is just work, is probably the wrong approach.
So with that being said, I highly recommend everybody go back and listen to my episode talking about the toxic workplace, and check out the articles that were included in that one as well, because it really does kind of tie into a lot of this. I guess that's kind of been my between this and that, and there's also an article on sports and like the camaraderie and like the team building that's involved with sports. Like, some of these things are things that are really directly pertinent to my life that I'm making connections to, especially as I've been in this like 7 or so year kind of transition into this new me that I kind of am. Like, if y'all had met me like in my first marriage, that dude did not look like me now in any way. He was an absolute sociopath, and I'm not super proud of that, but like I'm willing to, like, I've been able to acknowledge it and accept it. But like a lot of this stuff, like with being able to detach from work and being able to connect with the downstate time and the rest, and actually being like having like having a positive life and not just be completely ramped up towards whatever my professional career was. Like it's been a really cool transition for me, and so I'm kind of looking at stuff now that has kind of been coming into place over the last several years. So this has been a lot of fun, and I really appreciate y'all kind of coming along with me for this conversation and this little piece of my journey and sharing your journeys as well. Give your plugs, and we'll wrap this thing up.
You can find me. My podcast is the Break the Bell podcast. You can find it all over everywhere that you can find podcasts. You can hit us up on all social media. Our handle is @BreakTheBellPod. We just cover the current events and expose the crap that's going on in the world on a weekly basis. We live stream every Monday night. Then we usually wrap up the week on a weekend episode where we just talk about all the random stuff that we didn't get to cover in the main episode that's going on in the world. So that's the Break the Bell podcast.
Yeah, so you can find my podcast Blackbird on the podcast apps. I also do, so I release those like a week after the live stream, and you can tune into the live stream on typically Sunday mornings. Sometimes that varies, but yeah. So this weekend I'm interviewing Mark Changizi, a cognitive scientist. We're going to be talking about the purpose of humanity, which is a pretty deep subject. And I like to get into that kind of stuff. Try to stay away from politics. So if that's your thing, come join us in the chat on Sunday morning. I'll see you there.
And I highly recommend that one because Mark Changizi is a really interesting guy. So anytime you get a chance to listen to him, you should definitely do it. So yeah, for sure. And I'm going to push back on both of the guys a little bit because they talked about listening to podcasts as being upstate, but for me, it's completely downstate. And maybe that's because I already had watched the videos before I listened to the podcast. So when I go back and listen to it, it's all just kind of a refresher, and I'm a little more tuned out. But if you are looking for something that you can just completely zone out and laugh about, check out our morning show over on YouTube. It is The Morning After. You cannot find it by searching for The Morning After, but if you look for Vasectomy Clubhouse, it will take you straight to our episode or straight to our channel. So check us out. You can just listen to that and completely zone out and laugh and have a good time. And I will be doing that tomorrow morning at 7:30 Corn time, 8:30 in the water time. And Carlos is actually going to be joining me and Mark Metz for that in the morning. So check us out. And in the meantime, I hope everybody has a great rest of your week. Have a great weekend. And I will be back on Monday with another topic that'll probably be something that has to do with my journey over the last 7 years or so. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This has been a lot of fun. Thanks, guys, for joining me. Hope everybody had a good time. And I will catch you on the next one.